Communication models. Question number 1. Why it is important to know communication models? It is essential to know communication models due to the fact that these models can help us identify and understand the additives and relationship of communication processes, and also it helps us to understand what communication is and practice communication properly. Communication models is essential and useful for students and everyone because these models provide precise concepts and steps in process communication. These models makes our understanding of process of communication easier and help us to be efficient communicator. So it is important to know communication models because it is helping us to understand what is communication and ano ba yung communication processes and paano ba tayo makipag-communicate properly. And also, it is important to know these models because nagpo-provide ito na sa atin ng precise concepts and ideas kung ano ba yung communication processes. Question number 2. How are communication models going to help you to be efficient communicator? One factor that could help us to be efficient communicator is to be well knowledge about communication processes or to understand these communication models because these communication models provides ideas and thought of various aspects of communication which can help us to plan for effective communication and help us to formulate strategies and ideas on how to be a good, efficient communicator. So, one factor na nakakatulong sa atin to be efficient communicator is the communication models. Dahil itong communication models nito ay nagpo-provide ng ideas and thought na makakatulong sa atin, na magbibigay sa atin ng ideas kung paano ba maging isang effective na communicator. Question number 3. What are the criticism of Aristotle model of communication? Aristotle model of communication is a speaker-focused model, which is the speaker are the only one who has role and active in communication. Aristotle model is the only one-way process of communication that brought on his model of communication to have few criticism. And these are the sum of the criticism in Aristotle model. First is there is no concept of feedback. It is one way from speaker to audience. There is no idea of communication failure. And this model can only be used in public speaking. So, I think bakit may few criticism ang model ni Aristotle ay dahil wala siyang feedback. Because I believe, diba, feedback is really important kasi dun mo malalaman na if naging successful yung communication. And this model of Aristotle, wala siyang concept of feedback. So, I think kaya ganon, may criticism siya is dahil yung model of communication niya is one-way process of communication lang siya. Number 4. How did Harold Laswell come up with Laswell communication models? Laswell was inspired by the earliest mass communication model that the famous philosopher Aristotle initiated and tried to improve the model by adding the channel as a medium to replace occasion, which was previously proposed by Aristotle. And also, Laswell came up with the model initially to answer 5 W's, and that is who, says what, in which channel, to whom, and with what effect. So, reason why Laswell came up with his communication model is because na-inspired siya sa communication model ni Aristotle. Question number 5. What is the criticism of Laswell communication model? So, the primary criticism of Laswell model is that his model does not include feedback, and it ignores possibility of noise. It is somehow very similar to Aristotle model. They are almost the same criticism. This model does not also consider barriers, and it's very general and simplistic, and it is more centered on the resulting outcome and generally used for media persuasion. So, Laswell criticism of communication model is very similar to Aristotle criticism because his model was inspired by Aristotle, kaya yung criticism na nakuha nila is very similar. Question number 6. How did Berlo come up with Berlo's communication model? David Berlo proposes model of communication inspired from Shannon Weaver's model of communication. His model focuses on decoding and encoding of messages. So Berlo's come up with his communication model because he was also inspired by Shannon Weaver's model of communication. Like Laswell to Aristotle, Laswell is inspired by Aristotle model, and dito naman kay Berlo, he was also inspired naman kay Shannon Weaver's model of communication. Number 7. Discuss the essential thing that source or speaker of Berlo's communication should have. These are the essential factors that the sources or the speaker should have. One is the speaker should have good communication skills. If you are a good communicator, the receiver will understand your message well. Next is to have a good attitude. Attitude creates an effect of the message. So it is important to be specific and show good attitude. And also, be knowledgeable to the subject of the message because it helps the communicator to send his message effectively. Another essential thing a speaker should have is to be sensitive and aware to his surroundings and be understandable to the audience's culture and beliefs. So, one thing that is important na magkaroon ang sources or speaker is magkaroon sila ng good communication skills at magkaroon din sila ng magandang attitude at maging aware sila sa paligid nila and be appreciative sila sa mga tao. Question number 8. Discuss the essential things that the message under Berlo's communication model. So, message is the information that being sent by the sender to the receiver. It might be through written or spoken. In Berlo's communication model, message has 5 factors affecting the message, and these are the content, elements, treatment, structure, and code. Content is the message, and the structure is the form of the message, and yung code is anong medium yung ginamit natin to send message. Question number 9. Discuss the essential things that channel under Berlo's communication model. Channel is the medium used in sending messages. In mass communication, the channel being used are telephones, internet, television, etc. But in general communication, the five senses of human being is the channel being used, and these essential factors can contribute to the success of communication. These five senses are hearing, seeing, touching, and tasting, and also smelling. So, first is hearing. We receive the message through hearing. Next one is seeing. We perceive the information through seeing. And followed by touching. This is usually occurs on nonverbal communication. And smelling, we collect information from smelling, and last is tasting. Question number 10. Discuss the essential things that receiver of Berlo's communication should have. Essential things that receiver must have is similar to essential factors that the sender has. The Berlo's model believes that the thinking pattern and all other factors mentioned above must be matched up to the sender in order to the communication be effective. The message might change the effect if the sender and receiver are not similar. So, yung mga nabanggit sa sender na mga affecting factors ay parehas din lang sa receiver.